A Christmas story from 50 years ago. "'Twas the night before Christmas. Everything was quiet at my uncle's farm in South America. My cousin and I were looking out the window into the darkness and waiting. There was not a sound. No Santa, no reindeers, not even a whimper of the guard hound. I was 7 years old. My cousin Udo was of the same age, and he had an older brother named Conrad, who had told us earlier that evening, just before we were getting ready to go to bed. "You little idiots! Stop talking about Santa. There is no Santa. There is no reindeer. It is Mom and Dad and Uncle and Aunt who will be placing the presents under the tree tonight." "What? No way." "Yes way." And then he challenged us, "Why don't you kids stay up and look out the window and see for yourself?" And that is exactly what Udo and I decided to do. We sat on the windowsill by his bedroom on the second story of the farmhouse in Randau and waited. Outside, a ghost was moving on the yard. And we realized that was Fido, the guard hound. My parents were staying in the guest house, and if they were involved in the Santa cover-up, they would have to cross the yard to get to the main house where the Christmas tree was. It was long past midnight when we finally saw a light appear. A bright light. It was Rudolph leading the way. Rudolph with a shining light, a flashlight, presents. Rudolph and Hilda Platt, my parents, instead of Santa. The following morning, I woke up confused and devastated that my parents would lie to us. And then I got over it when I started unwrapping presents. And I got a toy truck out of metal, similar to this one, except that one was red. And my Uncle Gustav said, "All diese Geschenke hat der Weihnachtsmann gebracht." All these presents were delivered by Santa. And my mind got flooded with doubt once more. And I asked my dad, how come Udo and I got the exact same toy truck? I wanted mine to be more special. My dad said, "I don't know why Santa got you the same toys. Maybe you guys behaved similarly." Total BS. But I wasn't ready to challenge them on their lies. Not yet. I still had faith that Santa may be real, if not for us, then for some other kids. Perhaps for my cousins in Canada, where there was lots of snow for Santa's sleigh. In South America, it was the middle of summer, far too hot. Now that made some sense. You see, my uncle had this large ranch in northern Paraguay, where it was super hot. And on his large estate, there were several indigenous families who lived and worked for him. They would stay in what we call the toldo. Were like these makeshift little places where they lived and cooked and all slept together. Sometimes Udo and I would snoop around when they were all working on the fields and look at all the few possessions that they only had. Well, during our Christmas lunchtime, that Christmas, someone mentioned that the Shulupi children must have behaved very poorly because Santa didn't bring them any presents. And then one of the adults piped up and said, "Oh, that's because some of them still have that animistic belief system that all animals and all objects have their own spirits or ghosts. That is why Santa skips their huts." As I was listening in, it was all adding up. There really was no Santa. Because if any kids deserved presents, it was those Shulupi boys my age who I had seen work hard on the fields, with their parents all day under the scorching sun. And when it came to strange beliefs and myths, well, we've been told for 2 weeks to behave, otherwise we wouldn't get no presents from Santa. "Child, why aren't you eating?" asked my mom. I wasn't hungry, and I asked to be excused from the table. "It is Christmas after all," said my dad. "You can skip this meal." And my uncle Gustav added, "If you're going outside anyway, why don't you check on all those new toys on the yard before the Shulupi children steal them?" I quickly rushed out. There were 2 boys standing by the Paraiso tree, eyeing our toys. I quickly grabbed them all together so they would understand these belong to us. And then the invisible spirit of empathy tapped me on the shoulder. I looked at those boys standing there barefoot and dirty, and I asked if they wanted to play with these. One of them approached in a shy manner and said he wouldn't mind just touching that truck. Udo joined us a bit later, and we all played together until we were called inside for our daily siesta naps. And we told the boys they should continue playing while we had to nap. I generally hated those siesta naps, but I was tired. We had been up half the night, and I fell asleep quick and peacefully. And although on that day, some 50 years ago, on that Christmas day, the reality of Santa had been dashed for me, the spirit of Christmas still got a hold of me with a good lesson. And in a way, I was happy that Santa did not exist, that he wasn't part of a system of selective economic disadvantages. And if I could go back in time, I wish I would have taken my toys at the end of that day and handed them to those Shulupi boys, who, based on their hard work, deserve them far more than I. A famous 17th century Jewish philosopher, Baruch Spinoza, once wrote, "People who are ruled by reason desire nothing for themselves which they would not wish for all mankind." Shalom.